Right, welcome back, virtual audience. Person in front of the camera, perfect timing. Don't you worry about it, it's completely fine. So you are coming to us, virtual audience, just as the real audience are coming in. You've probably had your lunch and are sitting ready at your computer. We're just waiting a few minutes before they come, and you'll notice, audience at home, that things have changed slightly, and we're in a slightly different setup. I don't know the shot that you've got, but I imagine you can see, there's a big wide shot there, beautiful. You can see a load of people coming into a big hall. All those slightly scared people at the back, I shouldn't have said that, come and sit closer. I can't have you sitting so far away. I know it's nice to sit at the back and put your feet up on the chairs, but I really need all of you folks to come in nice and close, because look, this is where the meat is, guys. Is that the right expression on a conference about sustainability? But I really need you to come in and come in close. If I see any empty chairs here, there'll be trouble. Okay, so this is where a complete change in me. Okay, so come and grab a seat. Come on, fill these chairs. Don't be scared. Come on, what could happen? Don't worry. Grab a seat. Okay, so come. You're going to save the world, exactly. You can't have that on the table. Sorry, that goes under the table. Yeah, I turn into a real fascist at this table. Right, how are we doing? Are we good? We've got people behind me. Are you good? And you're more than welcome to sit around there. If you get bored looking at my backside, I've heard it happens. You're more than welcome to go around and look from the front. So come and grab a seat. So, whew, amazing. Here we are. So you might have noticed, if we can lose all glasses and cups off the table, that would be super duper. Thank you very much. So I do turn into a bit of a fascist. So, welcome back to all of you. Welcome to our virtual audience, and hopefully welcome to our virtual speakers. Can we, I don't know if it's possible, who knows, if we can bring our virtual speakers up on the screen, because that will be on the screen behind Jonathan here. If they are there, it's great, because it'd be nice to know, hey, look at that. Fantastic. Woo! Well done, boys. So, the first thing I want to do, I want to check, can our virtual speakers, that's, who have we got here? We've got Christina, Claude, B, and Barry. Barry, can you hear us and see us? That's not a good sign. Can any of you folks hear us? I presume my microphone's turned on. Can Claude, can you hear me? No, that's also not a good sign. Christina, can you hear me? Barry, do you want to come back? Not Barry, I mean B, do you want to come back? No. Okay, so look, whilst they are setting that up, and I know it's very, very complex, and maybe someone can give me a nod when you think that they might be able to hear me. Do we know what the problem might be over in the corner? We don't know? Okay, all right. So, and I'm presuming you must be able to hear me because the guys down in the van can hear me. Okay, well, whatever, okay. So, it's all right, I can see. Oh, well, you can't see. It's not for my benefit, it's for yours. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, it would be nice, Barry's had enough, he's like, sod this, he says. I'm going to go and do some DIY. So it would be super nice if we can get some sort of nod from them, but okay, I might have to just slightly re-explain to them what's going on, or they'll have to pick up. So we'll wait and see if they hear us. No, they can't hear us. Right, here we go. Let me just try and make sense of this, and then if they come on board, then I'll try and just give them a quick explanation. I can sort of hear noises, but it sounds like Barry's sort of moving things around. Can you hear me? Claude, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes! I love how he says, of course I can hear you, Paul. Christina, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Can you see me? Can you see me, Christina?
That is different. I see a shadow. I imagine that is you.
Yes, it's been said before. Claude, can you see me? What are you seeing? Barry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
What can you see, Barry?
I can see a dark room and maybe some silhouettes.
Okay, so maybe there's not enough light on me. I mean, can you see me? I mean, this is so okay. So they're not really seeing me, folks, but maybe that's okay. And then
now
B,
we see you.
Ah, beautiful. I hope that's good. B, are you there? You've gone into a white light. No, we've lost B, but hopefully B will be back. I'm sure she's a smart woman. She'll catch up. So here we go. We won't spend the entire session just getting online people. So look, this is the way it's going to work. And I presume all our real people can see and hear me. Yes, good. Yeah. That was a joke. Right, so what we did yesterday afternoon and this morning is that we gave a frame. We gave a frame to talk about taste on three...
Hi, I'm here now.
Hey, B! We can hear you. We can't see you, B. But hey, there you are. Fantastic.
Hi.
Hey,
This is the way it's work, and I presume all our real people can see and hear me. Yes, good.
Someone is talking.
Right. So, what we did.
Right, this is weird. I can hear myself, and other people can hear myself. I thought it was just me that could hear myself. I don't want to hear myself. It's horrible. So if we can lose that, that would be fantastic. So I'm coming out on a speaker, chaps. Oh, that's horrible, isn't it? Right. It's like when you see videos of yourself going, I don't sound like that, do I? Right. Here we go. Let's start again. So yesterday and today, we set out a frame. Yesterday morning session started off where we framed things very tight and close and intimate to taste, the taste of food. In the afternoon, we talked about the tasting of food, okay? And so we sort of we stepped slightly back. And then this morning, we went even further back and we talked about culture and society of tasting, okay? What that frame did was it created a load of really interesting balls. I'm going to be mixing my metaphors here.
You're talking to me.
Okay. B, we can hear you, just so you know, but I don't know if that's intentional.
Sorry.
That's all right, it's fine.
Somebody's saying there's audio feedback or something.
Okay, but I hope you can still hear me. So,
yes, I can hear you.
Good. So what happened is that through these fantastic sessions, yesterday and this morning, we've kind of thrown a load of balls up into the air, which I think is amazing. And I think what you've been doing, hopefully, talked about is that you've been discussing all these various different balls that have been flying around. And we noticed that in one session, we kind of slipped into the dynamics of another, and it's all merged in a way, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's fantastic. There are now, in my head, a load of really interesting balls flying in the air, okay? But we're here to address a central question. How do we eat for both pleasure and planet? So I think what we have to do is we have to try and grab these balls and we have to sort of bring them down onto the table. And by doing so, we have to see, well, do they make sense? Are they consistent? Which order do we talk about the balls? Is there a dependency between them? Is there a codependency? Does talk about one ball lead us to the next, to the next, to the next? And that's what I think is the really complex thing. And I think that's the really interesting thing. But I think to sort of ignore that and just go away and just, hey, it wasn't a lovely conference, would be in a way shirking our responsibility. I think it's important that we do attempt to go even closer to addressing the question, how do we eat for both pleasure and planet? Now, I'm not going to attempt in any way to suggest that we're going to answer it here, but I think we're going to get closer and we're going to qualify the questions better. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to bring in another frame, okay? A frame actually that you all know already, because sometimes some of the best frames are established frames. A little bit, I'm sure Claude would hopefully agree with me, that if it's a frame that we all understand, then we can work within the rules of that domain, that frame. And what frame is that? In Danish, you say from jord to bord, and in English, you say from farm to fork. So what I'm going to try and do, wish me luck, in the next, I hope my watch is on time, yes it is in the next hour and a half, 2 hours, max, okay? If we answer it, we can all go home early. That's what teachers say, isn't it? As if. Or if we run out of steam or whatever, we'll just finish it early. But the way it's going to work is that we, in the first half of this session, I'm not saying it's going to take half the time. We'll see how long it takes. We're just going to get down onto the table a frame. This frame, what you might call the food value chain, from farm to fork, from jord to bord. Just basically a very simple frame as to all the various different activities that happen from when you farm food to getting it into your mouth and beyond. I'm sure a lot of people here are going to be saying, oh, but there's this, you've missed out on this and this and this, and that's fantastic. We're going to get that down as a frame. Once that's down, and we feel pretty confident, we all agree, yep, that's the basic structure. Then we're going to start grabbing all these beautiful balls that we've thrown up into the air for the last day and a half, and we're going to try and populate that frame with those balls, okay? This is really weird, mixed analogies. And so once we get them, then we can then start seeing, well, where do they sit? What do they influence? What part of the value chain do they affect? Do they actually affect a part of the value chain that we haven't even talked about? So then we have to go back to the value chain and we have to extend it and change it. So that's it. That's what I hope that we can do, is that we can use the framing of the value chain, the food value chain, as a way of sort of forcing us to really deal with a lot of these fantastic ideas that have been thrown up in the air for the last day and a half. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by using these lovely 4 people around me, okay? I'm going to be doing it by using the 4 virtual folks at home who should be able to see the table and me and should be able to hear us. We're also going to do it by using you folks, all right? Because you can at certain points shout out and suggest things, all right? And you guys can help as well, because you can actually help us with the pieces. And we're also going to do it with the virtual people at home, because our lovely colleagues here, Eva and Maria, are going to just pick up any chatter that's coming from the web, and they're going to feed it into the room. The only thing is technically it's a little bit tough, because the virtual audience can't hear you guys. So if you say stuff, I need to kind of repeat it for the virtual folks to be able to hear it at home. All right. Now, the last thing I do before we start, and I'll get some water, is I do have to be a bit of a fascist in that if what this afternoon can't turn into is just a talking shop. It can't just talk into a great big discussion, because whilst that's great and fantastic, all we'll be doing is throwing balls back up into the air again, all right? I believe what we have to do is I have to, hopefully, control the input that we're getting and force it onto the table. So if you are talking, one of the 4 physical speakers, one of the 4 virtual speakers, any of you guys, some of the people back home, if I interrupt you and say, oh, stop there, it's for good reason. It's not just me being power mad, a little bit. It's mainly because you said something interesting and I want to get it on the table. All right, so that's what I'm trying to do. Happy? Great. Oh my God. Right. So on that note, then, I'll throw this away here. And as I say, I will control the proceedings and I will bring in people, and by all means, mainly, let's initially start with the 4 speakers in the room and the 4 virtual speakers. If you've 4 virtual speakers want to say something, but if I don't want you to say anything, I'll quieten you down and then bring you in politely, I hope. And then when I'm ready to bring you guys more in, I will bring you in. That's the real audience here. From farm to fork, all right? We've got to get it on the table. I imagine a fairly sort of linear line. It might end up as a big circle because it might be so long, I don't know. But let's just talk about some of the elements. What are some of the elements that we can put on the table that capture from farm to fork? What are some of the elements?
Well, some of the elements might be both some animals.
Right,
in
great.
the
Hold on a
beginning.
sec. Now, no, look at that.
Oh,
Perfect.
no.
Great. That's great. No. This is how it works. Animals. Okay. So you're saying animals because we do we eat dogs? Well, maybe we do.
We don't, but that was what I could find here.
Okay, great. So animals. We farm animals. Yes.
We farm animals.
Great. Stop that. Where should we put? There's a chicken somewhere. I know.
This is a sort of chicken.
Oh, I'll throw my hand. So where do we put? Whoa! Stop. We're not. This is not creating a theme park for Disneyland. Okay, right? All right. So we have to be kind of fairly rationed.
Okay.
All right. But maybe hold on to that. Yes. Yep. Wait. Yes. Totally. Woo, thank you. Hold it a second. That's great, and we will put it in. But don't forget, Lizard was mentioned today, so that's something that we're going to bring in. That's one of the balls, right? We're not talking about the balls at the moment. We're talking about the framing of farm to fork. So where do we want to put this? Are we going to put it at this end and work that way? Are we going to put it here and work around the table? Where should we have the farming?
I like the round idea.
To there?
Yes.
Yes? Good. Great. So we're farming animals. Is that the only thing we're farming?
You've got plants, right?
We're farming plants. Stick it on. Why over here? Why do we not want to put it with
I'm
the...
giving it to you, because I think you have a really good idea.
You put it somewhere.
All right, then I'll put them here.
Right, so we're farming animals, we're farming arable, yeah?
And
crops and stuff like that.
We could also see that it would both be here, because we both eat the animals, but we also produce weed and stuff to feed.
Oh, brilliant. So we need a little bit more food to feed the animal. Great. So here's some food that we feed to the animals, that we grow to feed animals, and there's the food that we grow for people. So why don't you put a little person there? Like this person here is going to eat that thing there, right? Who's producing all this stuff?
The pirate farmer.
Pirate farmer. Okay, great. So hold on a sec. Right, we're going to... Right, hold on. Great. So we've got farmers, yes? And do we have... so we've got farmers that are producing food for people, and we've... What are you doing?
Grass.
Ah, because that's also for the animals, right? Okay, I'm watching you. Right, so we've got farmers that are producing food for people, and we've got farmers producing food for animals and animals for people. Correct? Yes.
Can I put some manure in between?
Actually, I don't want to put people in there because the people are going to be down here. You want to have manure?
Yes, because that's like very important.
Cool. Beautiful. I love it.
It's actually a tail, I think.
Okay, so we've got some manure, gule, I think they say in Danish, that's being produced by the animals to help to produce the food for the animals and for the people. Another part, and you don't have to work necessarily, we can talk at any point of the value chain.
I'd like to add some more fundamental, that's the sun.
The sun?
The
Great.
sun.
Brilliant. So that's almost at the start, is it?
And also the ocean.
The ocean, that's another place.
Not only the farm.
Great. So that reminds us that we've got different types of terrains, haven't we, where we farm stuff, and also where we get stuff from. So it's not just about farming. There's also the ocean where we both farm and we also catch. Yes, agreed? So can we have two objects, one for catching food in the ocean and one for farming? And you guys can also help me here if you've got anything. I didn't want to put you off there. You'd probably feel, why should I help him, do you think? So an object to represent the notion of farming in the sea. Oh, is that catching? Great. Beautiful. Thank you very much. So we sometimes catch, yes, and we sometimes farm. What does farming look like? Brilliant. So, okay, I'll just go with it. So we have farming in the sea, we have catching in the sea, we have farming of animals. Okay. Okay, that's enough. That's good. That's not, one is enough for me. And we have the sun that is basically powering it all, right? Okay. So what else? Come on. What else is this? What else is happening? Any of you four virtual people got any our virtual guests? Any comments about the value chain? You can talk about any point in the value chain you want.
I've made this for you, Claude.
I can't hear Barry. I can't hear Barry. You just said something. Try again, Barry.
Yes.
No, he's gone all quiet. So sorry, Barry. We can't hear you. We're going to fix that, Barry, and we're going to get you. People. Oh, what do you mean? People who are eating food?
No, people who are producing food.
Great. But when you say producing, a bit more detail. You're not talking about farmers, are you?
Yeah,
farms don't make themselves.
Say again.
And farms don't make the food themselves.
Right. So you've got producers.
And we need to also have people who deliver.
Right. Okay. Great. So we need. So we talk about processors, people who process food. Yes. Yes. I don't know what the right terms are. You're the experts. So we've got a person who takes the food from the farms and processes it. Right. Is that the right word? Manufacturers. Right. Great. Let's see someone who's a manufacturer. What do they look like? A factory. Is that a factory? Bomb? Is that what?
It was an aqua farm.
An agri farm.
But if you combine them with this, it might be a factory.
That's great. So where is the factory? It's around here somewhere because we're going on a big circle, correct?
Someone.
Oh, who's that?
We need the circularity.
Someone in the factory.
I'm not going to use him. Someone in the factory who's driving a factory that processes the food. Thank you. And you also said delivery as well, didn't you? People that drive the food around from the factories to the stores, I presume. Oh, is that chap there? Yes, would you say? Yes? Okay. Right. So we've got farms, we've got people who process the food, we've got the delivery to the shops, right? Can we see a shop? Who's got a shop?
Isn't that a shop?
That's a shop.
Is that a shop?
That
a coffee. There's a coffee shop. Okay, there's a shop. All right. So there's a shop there. Can we knock that out? I get confused by that. Right. So where else are they delivering it to? Are they only they're delivering? But they're delivering it to wholesale, aren't they? Wholesale. Then what's the next word after wholesale?
Retail.
Hospital.
Retail.
Retail.
No, not in the dictionary, Barry. Okay. So wholesale and then retail, correct? Right?
Yep.
So this is retail, isn't it? So we need wholesale, don't we? Like big... yeah, that's good. Don't you think, like that? It's big warehouses. Catering as well. So catering. Right, and they get it from wholesale, right? So what does catering look like? Can someone find an object that looks like... This is a small restaurant. A restaurant. Okay, so would that be... Yeah, that fit you? Okay. So we've got retail and we've got catering. And as restaurants fall under the category catering? Hospitality. It falls under hospitality, not catering. Or does it? Is catering something separate from hospitality? No, great. Okay, good.
It's fine.
Right. Yes, go on.
Too few in production. There's a lot of people producing food with different supplements and really complicated chains in that.
Great.
And I talked about someone here over lunch about the importance of the companies and the production. So I think we should add some. I've made this. So I think, but maybe it's not one straight line. Maybe they are here because they deliver into these guys.
Okay. Could you do me a massive favor? I know I chastised you earlier. Can you pull that back a bit? Brilliant. So you're saying that there are actually to represent production and processing with just one object is almost silly. We should. It's much more complex.
Too simple.
It's too simple.
Can I put some coal in there? Or
coal?
Some, or some gas or
difficult.
coal or something
Yeah.
that's burned to fuel everything.
So
Right.
very
Okay.
new.
Cool. Because
Yeah, but
Yeah, not enough.
right now we're not only using that,
No.
right?
I'd like to add
well,
something.
hold on a second. To go back to Mariah's point, are you saying, Mariah, that in a way this could be central because because
Or
everything is
oil.
reliant on energy?
Yes.
Okay, so there's some sort of energy. We've got the energy of the sun, but we've also got human-derived energy that helps us do all these different processes. Yes? There's a cat. Oh, yeah. Other people saying? What? Innovators. Marketers, right. So hold on. Let's just deal with innovators. I'm going to come to all in a sec. Innovators, where do the innovators sit within this? This is not about a strategy about how to change things. It's about what is happening right now. So maybe that's...
I think the innovators are omnipresent.
Okay, within all spaces?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one.
So
She just came up with a great idea.
they both did. Guess what? Well, you'll never guess. Okay, so in a way, are you saying, therefore, there is research and innovation that's happening across all sectors? And should that almost be represented as one thing, or do we represent the innovation and research that's happening across all the different sectors? Do you sort of mean?
Separate.
Separate. Okay, great. Why is that, Barry?
Separate because I want you to find a symbol or a Lego piece for a vertical farm.
Okay, right. Right. Okay, here we have our vertical farm, which is going to come in here, because that's another form of farming.
We need home cook.
Okay, 2 seconds, B. My brain is overloading. So, what I got a feeling is that Barry's suggesting we need to have innovation and research at all the different places, because there are different researchers and innovators dealing with each area, yes? Yeah. So it would almost be useful for us not to use an object, but to almost to use a coloured brick, so that we know, for example, it should be green, shouldn't it? Excuse me, sorry.
Oh, this is my fault.
No, it's fine. Shit, yellow, I meant to say.
It.
So if we use yellow as innovation, we're saying there's innovation within, there's innovators working within farm, there's innovation working within processing, there's innovators working within delivery systems, there's innovation working within retail, yes? There's innovation working within, any more square bricks? Tuck, within warehousing, and there's innovation happening within energy. So there's innovation and research happening, right? Ola, what are you going to say?
All this is based on our immediate needs on the short-term basis, but where does the stuff come from? That's why I added the sun. But there's there's the ocean. There's also the forest, something we don't eat, but which is absolutely essential for that there'll be something to eat.
Absolutely, but you're
so that's part of the sustainability.
But is it? Well, hold on.
I don't know who is. I really was missing that.
Do you say quiz?
I don't know why you were just considering the value chain. The food chain may not have a value.
You can't see that separate from anything else on the planet. I think that's my point.
The value.
This is part of the value chain.
The forests.
Yeah, we need the surroundings, the environment, people.
Hold on a second. Right. Whoa. So, are you saying that? When you're saying the forest, you mean the whole environment, the ecology of the planet?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got you.
And it's certainly part of modern farming.
Should I put that centrally?
Oh,
yes.
Because it's something that we have to. So it's part of the value chain.
And
Great.
I've got all these microbes here as well. I think they really.
And where do they go?
Shouldn't. Well,
What
also
part of the value
everywhere.
chain?
I think
You can just
also
throw them
here.
around.
Okay. No, don't do that because my brain is just completely. Thanks, Bob. He's done this. He's just teasing me now. Okay. So we have. And anything else coming from online? Yes, go on. Transportation. We have transportation here, but do we only mean, because that's just transportation from the processing to the warehousing. Do we need more transportation? Right, okay, so wheels. Give me some wheels, folks.
Hot Wheels.
Okay, Hot Wheels. No, not that one. Wheels, right. So we're saying that there are forms of transportation within all points, in a way.
Thanks.
Because everything has to be moved, doesn't it? Let's move that out of the way. So there's that. So in a way, there are wheels that... and then also, presumably, the consumers, right? I mean, here's a consumer. Look at him. He's hungry. So there are consumers who also drive places to go and get food, right? Yes? Anything else from the virtual land? Sorry?
I just want
Whoa. Hold on. This is hilarious. It's like herding cats. Say again. Import and export. Oh, from abroad or from other... Right.
Yeah, but I think we have this is a global system here.
Oh, it's a global system, says
smart.
Bob, so we don't have to...
From other
There you
planets.
go.
Yeah.
Anything else?
What about
policymakers? Great. Sorry, a second, Claude. I'm going to come to you in a second,
Yeah.
Claude.
So
Policymakers.
Okay.
Eva. Let's see a policymaker. What does a policymaker look like?
Choose one.
I have one here.
Right.
This is a very good
Oh,
policy.
I think this. Yes, I think Bob has it. I'm afraid. Policymaker. Where do policymakers go? Because they make policy for all aspects, right?
Yeah.
So they're pretty central, yes. So we have
Yeah.
policymakers there. All right.
They are another part of the support system, like nature,
Oh, okay. Well, we wish. Claude, you were going to say something.
if they would take their role.
No, I mean, sorry. I understand we understand policy makers, but what about them?
What did he say? I didn't. What about
Water.
water?
We've got
Well, we
the
have water as a
ocean.
resource here. This is water as a resource. So just to clarify, we have water, we have the farming of water, we have the catching of fish in water, we have farming of both arable
Fresh water.
shipping. Shipping, I think, is represented by the different transportation, and we just have to recognise it could be local or
But fresh
global.
water, I do believe that
Yeah, it's something
ocean and
separate.
fresh water.
Fresh water. So we've got a nice
in the
bit of-
middle,
Why in the middle? Oh, okay.
because it's like supplying everything. Without it, we.
Okay.
It's like the bees.
Oh, and when you talk about fresh water, you're also talking about the piping of fresh water so like farms taking water. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else that we're missing?
I've made this for Claude. It's a table and people meeting around the table to eat.
Right. So we've got.
But you need the kitchen to match.
Oh yes, someone said. I think it was B. I do apologise. B, you mentioned.
I was trying to say about cooks.
Cooks, domestic cooks. What does a domestic cook look like? Oh, there's a. And
No,
I
I wanted to say, I mean, we
This
know
is a
that
very good
everyone's
domestic
playing
cook.
multiple roles, aren't they? The home cook is also potentially a farmer, a delivery driver, a shop worker, a restaurant chef.
Right. Okay. So
And the other thing I wanted to say is, you're assuming the food goes from farm to wholesaler to restaurant, but what about restaurants that buy direct from farm?
I didn't quite. I'm so sorry, Bree. Can you say that again? Say that. I didn't quite hear you.
So, yeah, I'm echoing, aren't I?
It's all right.
My first point is we need home cooks, but potentially, as Paul was pointed out, everyone can be a cook, just as everyone can be an innovator.
Yes.
And my second point is that you've got this simple linear supply chain where things go move from farm to wholesaler to retailer to restaurant. But what about those restaurants who are already buying direct from farmers?
Right. Okay. Absolutely. So you're saying actually. Okay. So let's put several things down. Bon wanted that as a domestic work. I think that looks like a chef. I know lots of chefs who look like that. So we have the chef in the restaurants. That was the restaurants, wasn't it?
No.
Was that
That was the retailer.
Okay. And we also have domestic cooks who are basically feeding their families, correct? There are some small children around.
Or
here
themselves.
Or themselves.
Households.
Here, look, I've got some lovely guys
We
here.
need some
Okay,
scientists
so maybe
as
families.
well.
All right. So that was that. And then you said something. Damn, what was the second thing you said, B?
The second thing I said is you're assuming that there's a particular chain where it goes farm to wholesaler to retailer. But what about those many people who are already first in that chain
Oh, yes.
buying direct from the farm?
Gosh, yeah. Your audio is terrible. I don't know why. I do apologise. But so
It's
you're
awful. Shall I sign on again?
so you're saying, yeah, maybe there's something weird. Maybe if you put your headphones in, if you've got headphones, that will help it. So here's the thing: is I get the impression that B is telling us that there are shortcuts within this established system. So it's not like things just follow down this route, right? There are some people like these guys who might have a direct relationship to these people, right? Okay. Now, so maybe we can show that using these blue lines. That's good. I've got loads of old. It's from my childhood. Right. So people like this can actually bypass, can't they? And they can actually come. Oh, thank you so much. They can actually come. Thank you.
The family can also,
So they can come to the farming area, yes, and also these people as well can also come into the farming area. Correct? Is that right?
Yeah.
This is just given to me, yeah. Right. Okay. Any other shortcuts that we're seeing on this? And if anybody in the room also, please, with both the virtual audience and the real audience, if there's anything you're thinking, Jesus, or our guests.
Can I suggest something?
Yes.
Can you maybe propose some unit around food, like for example, schools,
Come in.
homegrown schools, something like that.
I'm so sorry, we got disturbed by Barrett's guests. I think Amazon just turned up. So, Christina, what was that again? Can you say, Christina, again?
I was saying that
Schools.
maybe you can set up some units around which, you know, small food systems can develop, like a school. Like imagine you don't have anything.
A school? So what is that?
School?
What is that school doing? Somebody give me a school.
That
Somebody
school,
make me a school.
it's not what is doing the school. It's what your food is going to be shortening the space
In the what?
of distribution.
This is a teacher.
Can you hear me? I hear an echo.
Okay, so hold on. Let's just be clear here. It's a bit difficult to hear you. Are you saying, Christina, that we need to represent schools per se, as in the way that schools are just part of the system as they currently are, or are you suggesting schools are part of the kind of the solution?
Yes, they are.
Of course they are, but what I want to understand right now, before we start moving into these balls that are floating in the air as parts of the solution, are foods part of the existing value chain for food right now? I mean, I imagine...
Can we have cooking schools?
Cooking schools? Okay, great. So that's education, right? This is... Thank you very much. So we've got cooking schools that basically inform chefs, yes?
Yeah.
And also
yes.
maybe also inform children and stuff about the way of, like we talked about, Karen talked about the work that she's doing, right? Yes, that's...
Like beeswax.
Thanks, Barry. Yes?
I think we missed waste and packaging.
Waste. Okay, so we have a thing from the audience here. Waste and, what was the second thing? Packaging. Brilliant. So packaging, look at that, you're good at this. So packaging presumably sits where? Within the processing of food, yes? Around here, before it gets stuffed. And also, does it happen downstream of that, packaging? Or does packaging happen there? Okay, the second thing was waste. Look at that, look at all that waste. So waste is happening everywhere, right? So we have, same color as coal, Mariah, come on. I mean, you know, is that really? I mean, come on. I mean, okay, so we have right in the center, we have fuel, we have waste, we have innovation, we have fresh water, we have microbes, we have policymakers, we have the biosphere, the biome.
You need a bank.
Banks!
Oh, yeah.
Imagine, right. What do the bankers look like?
An ethical bank,
Don't tempt me.
Look at that. And that's finance, yeah? And I presume finance, let's put it on a nice big yellow brick. Yeah. Finance. Oh, okay. Oh, that's... Okay, so we have banks here. So finance is at the root of a lot of it, right? So we have finance sitting in the middle of everything, and because that's a currency that helps the whole system work, yeah? Yes, sir?
You need nutrients.
Nutrients?
From the table back and then also from the factory into the plant.
I didn't... When you said nutrients, so we just said for our virtual audience, we want nutrients, and you said from the table back. What does that mean? I don't understand. It's me, not you.
Waste from a waste treatment plant.
Ah, so it's the waste. Is that the waste that Mariah was talking about, which is represented by this, because there is waste in all aspects of this? But are you saying that there needs to be waste treatment systems?
Yeah, well, you do that. You recycle waste from toilets.
Great. So we need some sort of process of waste management systems. Is this a waste management system?
I think it is.
And I presume waste management happens at all stages, right? Not just at the family, right?
Well, we're putting things back into the biosphere, so maybe...
So the relation, so in a way, here's the waste that Mariah came up with. Here's Lara's waste management system, and that then feeds back into the biosphere. Would that be okay to do? Does that?
Then you also need a nitrogen fertilizer factory somewhere.
Oh, okay, right. So nitrogen fertilizer factories. Right, because they are feeding this, right? So we have, oh, here we go. Thank you very much. So this is producing lovely nitrates,
What about
fertilizers.
Seeds also?
Yes, for the farmers. Great. So let's see. Well, let's find it then. Let's a seed manufacturing depot. Definitely. Who hadn't not realised that was a seed manufacturing depot? Oh, oh, look at that. Thank you so much. So we've got seed manufacturing. Oh, thank God. There you go. Right. We spend the next hour just finding green bits. So we've got the farms being supplied with nitrates from fertilizers. We've got seeds being provided. What other? Yes.
We need a fork for the farm because that shows that what we eat determines what is grown.
Is that okay? So is that? Are you saying that the farmers need to know what it is that we're eating in order for them to know? But who is it? Oh, that's really interesting. Who is informing the farmers about what we eat? Is it policymakers because of the way in which they subsidise certain crops, or is it just because of the manufacturers saying, we know the shops want this, therefore farmers need to make that? Is that what I mean? Or are you saying that this, what? Okay. Is there anybody who isn't on the table right now that needs to be on the table that is dictating what the farmers should make? Let's get rid of him. Does that make sense? Is there anybody that we haven't mapped on the table that is informing the farmers? Yeah, yes?
Grain processors. You have 5 in the world, and those determine which crops are really grown.
When you say the grain, are they the seed providers?
Cargill, Dreyfus.
Like
It's the grain processors.
the processors, the people who process the grain.
Yeah, but there are many processors. Others also produce of some sort.
So you're saying that within that night over there could be a grain processor, and they are informing the farmers as to what to make. Okay, is that yes?
Have we mentioned the multinational ultra-processed food industry?
Whoa! Can you say that again, B?
Have we mentioned the multinational ultra-processed food industry?
No,
because they're the main people speaking everything about how much we do.
It sounds to me like, with the woman behind me and what you're saying, B, is that we need to be probably a little bit more granular in the way in which we define the processing of food. Would that be true? So, what does that gentleman there sitting on the blue brick, could we suggest that he's one of your 5?
I'm just saying, B has a good point. You have the Unilevers, but the Unilevers do not decide whether it's pea or soy going into the ultra-processed. That would be the Cargills deciding that soy is the ruling crop.
Can we have both of them on the table?
So we have both.
Great. So if the, thank you very much. So the gentleman there sitting on the blue brick is one of your 5 grain processors, and the long name that B just came up with, which I now can't repeat, multinational food processors?
Ultra-processed food. So what you need are chemistry labs.
Well, I've got a guy in a white suit. How does that look? Right? So people in chemistry labs, we need white bricks. There you go. So those are the ultra-processed food producers, right? Shit, could you help me, madam? Thank you. Oh, I did it. Whew. Okay. What else do we need to go? Oh, so sorry. Yes.
We need
you also need
oh my God. Okay, sorry, it's my fault. So hold on, virtual speakers. I've got a member of our audience, real audience, going to say something.
Okay, like it's not directly related to farming, but I think some kind of like social media or some kind of media that is influencing people's food choices.
Right. Okay. Oh my God, influencers, just like this woman here. No, you're like this. So you're saying that there's a kind of a media culture,
like
but.
Things that people see on TV, like advertisement, like.
And where is that having its influence? Are you saying that's having an influence at the consumption end, or at the retail end, or at this end?
Yeah, like
consumption.
On the consumption, but also like on the industry.
And the industry.
Yeah.
But via the consumers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, like, the industry.
But also the industry are going in there and influencing these to influence consumers. Yes. Right. So here's our social media influencers that are influencing the audience. Yes, Dutch lady. And isn't that just so we don't go? Is that not part of the banking system, or are you saying that that's also separate from that? Right. Should we just include that within finance, or do we have to differentiate it? I'm happy to do that. I just want to know how granular we need to be. Does it make a difference when we look at some of our ideas? I mean, I can do.
Because there's owners and there's the finance.
Right. Okay.
So the private owners and
She looks rich. Okay, so she's got money, and she's sitting on a load of dollars.
That's my retirement fund.
That's your retirement fund. She's got dollars, thank you. Okay, so...
Claude is trying to say something.
Who, Claude is? Yeah, Claude, sorry, Claude.
Yeah, when we talk of farmers, what we have in mind is the guy with his fork and his own tractor and everything, but we have corporate farming with lots of executives and marketing tools and everything. These guys inform the about what consumers are supposed to want. And we have cooperative farming that is also equipped with executives and all that. And then we have information to farmers from people who are trying to sell them grain or to sell them equipment.
Claude, stop there 1 second. So let's just say, are we saying that there are different types of farming? That there is kind of single-owned farming, there's cooperative farming, and then there's this more corporate farming? Does 3 categories kind of do it for you?
Vertical farming.
Well, hold on a second, Barry.
We have a vertical farming.
Yeah, we have vertical farming, Barry. Okay. All right. But Claude, am I right in thinking that 3 different types of farming would do it for you? It would cover you. So we have the.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, but I think it's.
Are there any experts? Any experts on here who want to say whether or not Barry is saying something? Not Barry. Claude is saying something right or wrong? They're all very polite. Okay, so this is maybe an owner. We need a cooperative that looks like. What does a cooperative look like? It's a bunch of small people all very happy together. So we have the cooperative farming, and then we also have. Looks like Jeppe and Johan, doesn't it? From last night, is it Johan? And then we have the more commercial farming. What does commercial farming look like? Definitely looks like that. Actually, he more looks like the farmer, desperately trying to, and he's the commercial farmer, right? Good. I think the thing you just mentioned, Claude, a second ago afterwards was what we've already mentioned, which is the influence that we have from the grain processors have on the farming. Yeah.
How do we show the invisible things like food culture or emotions about food?
I'm wondering whether or not, and this is where I get, maybe I fall apart, which is that part of the food chain, or is that part of the stuff that we've been talking about for the last day and a half that we want to map on top of the food chain, which are the kind of the influencing aspects that affect the food chain?
But it's just as much an influence as the influencer.
Okay, cool.
And food history as well.
Okay, so what is it we would like? Can you do me a favour, folks? Can you pull all the bits back so we can make the table a bit cleaner? So we can sort of see it a bit more.
Paul,
yeah, hold on, Barry. Go on, Barry.
The people who make the forks.
The people that make the forks.
Yeah, because if you've got farm to fork, you need forks.
Very true, Barry. Okay.
It's a design fork.
So you're saying that the equipment by which we eat food with, like plates, plates, glasses, cutlery.
Yeah. If you want to talk about farm to fork.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Okay, right. So here's someone that makes the materials by which we eat, and that might have some influence. So, Mariah, before I come to you, I just want to clarify what we have on the table so far, and then we can then go down into that what you were saying. I hope everybody can hear me now. So we started off by talking about farms. We talked about the fact we have farms that produce animals. We have farms that produce arable for people to eat. There are different types of farms. There are single-owned farms. There are corporate farms. There are cooperative farms. We have vertical farms. We have the sea. We have the sea as a resource that we go in and we catch stuff, and we also farm. We have the sun that powers all of that. We have these just 2 seconds. Hold on a second. Sorry, I keep pointing at the screen. We have the various different wheels that represent there is transportation between these various different elements. We move from the farming into the processing of food. We recognize that the processing is very complex. We have these highly processed manufacturers of food. We also have these grain producers, I believe, that have an influence back upstream, as it were, as to what these guys produce. There's a level of complexity there we might even have to go down. There's packaging, there's transportation. There's more transportation. I don't know how that happened. I'll do that. Or maybe I'll put him on there. He's fun. We don't lose him. There's transportation. All the yellow represents that there are innovation and research happening at every different stage. We move from the processing of food into the warehousing of food. We go from the warehousing into catering, which can include hotels, restaurants, cafes, correct? I mean, we had that as cafe, but do we lose that? I can't remember the difference.
That's retail.
That's retail. I'm sorry. Can you see? Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jonathan. We have restaurants. We have schools. We then have the family home, where we have domestic cooking. where we have the consumption of food, we have people gathering around tables and eating, we have the people producing the materials we need to eat food, like forks or tables or plates or whatever. In the middle, we have various aspects. We have the biosphere, we have the ecology that we're using, we've got the energy that we produce by using fossil fuels or whatever. We have fresh water supplies, we have the microbes. 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, Christina, 2 seconds. I'm nearly finished, I promise. We have policymakers, government, we have finance, we have owned money, how do you describe that? Rich people, pension funds,
Investors.
whatever. Yeah. We have processing of sewage, of waste, we have waste. We have shortcuts that people have found away from that part of the value chain. And that was about it. I'm going to come to Mariah in a sec, but Christina, what were you going to say?
If you come back to waste, kill the fuel and transform the waste into energy. That will be good.
Yes, it might be good.
So make it,
and
it more circular.
Absolutely. And we're now we're drifting nicely into solutions, which is great. And I imagine that's what people will do already. I presume that people use waste to create energy in some sort of way. Mariah, what were you saying was you felt was missing on the table?
Well, a lot of influences on all of this comes from culture, history, and emotional decisions, irrationality, which
great.
is kind of
Let's break that down so that we can sort of map it. You talked about culture. Are you saying that everything is affected by culture, or there are certain parts that are affected by culture? Or everything is affected by culture?
Well, I think what people eat is reflected by culture, and that also filters back into what's being produced, probably, or what is being invested in.
So much like we use the yellow bricks to represent innovation and research and development, can we just use a single coloured brick to represent culture? Is it the orange brick of culture? A bit of
orange,
definitely. Dutch orange, you know. So where would you put this? If you're going to populate the table with culture, where are you going to put it? You're going to put it mainly down at that end?
I guess that's where it's being
Is that something you'd agree with, Claude?
As well.
Yes.
Where would you say, Claude, here's a question for you. Good luck. Where does culture exist? Where does culture exist on this table?
I never said it could be mapped.
Don't hold me account. Come on then, Mariah. Where else?
Yeah, I put one there.
I'm surprised we didn't map fertilizers, pesticides, air chemicals, additives, all these industries.
I imagine it's there, and I imagine the things you're talking about, Claude, are kind of part of this whole machinery of making nitrates, of creating seeds, of creating pesticides. We can have another one for making pesticides. What does that look like? That looks like a pesticide, doesn't it? Or maybe we just need another big red brick. Here you go.
I think what she's addressing is in fact the demand. What is influencing demand? And you were talking about influencers, you were talking about the marketing, you were talking about what drives the demand. So demand is from farm to fork is demand very important. And there's a cultural influence of demand. There's many things.
Okay, so I'm sure it is. I'm just saying for our virtual audience at home, I don't know if you heard that from a member of the audience who talked very much about how there's a culture of demand and how different aspects within the food chain will influence the demand, and that could be right from marketing right through down to the consumers themselves. Yeah. So, Mariah, you just put some orange bricks on the table to represent the culture, but you also talked about other things, and Bob mentioned history. Are we separating those two things out, history and culture, or are they one of the same?
I think one is the product of the other.
Okay.
Culture
But I do think that like a mental state is maybe not culture, but it is, I think, personal identity with food, or like as we've seen in some of the researchers, like people have been behaving differently with COVID because of they're feeling differently. So I think that will have an effect also on retail, and from retail back to what is being produced.
So what is that, state of mind?
And also on resources.
What do we categorize that as? All of you got an answer for that, or is it separate?
I think, now we're looking at this whole as a system.
Yeah.
And it's a very complex system. There are all sorts of conflicts in the system. And if you look at it from a point of view of system theory point of view, you have sources and you have sinks. So it sort of flows through the system.
Yeah.
And all these agents they have different agendas.
Yes.
And so when you look at a system, there's usually sort of an object function, something that is optimized or minimized. And if it's sort of a natural system, it will be something what we call entropy.
Yes.
But each individual agent, they have their agenda, and some have profit, some have sustainability. There are all sorts of things happening here, which makes this, which is also why policymakers really have no way of changing this.
Well, who policymakers?
Policymakers, they have no way of changing. They think they can, but they really can't.
Right, and is that, who was it who gave this talk and mentioned about want and like? That was someone speaking.
That was Barry.
Barry. Yeah. So is the want, because now I'm sort of slipping slowly into now trying to grab some of the balls for the last day and a half and mix this with what Mariah's talking about, what All is talking about, and trying to bring that down onto the table and trying to talk about some of the issue points that were raised over the last day and a half and try to see where does that come on the table, what does it influence, how does it influence, yeah. So you talked about want and like, is that right, Barry?
Yeah, so I think wanting is driving consumption, but not always related to liking. So people might like some of the better foods that we think are more sustainably produced, as B suggested, but they have got rather hooked on foods that give them false satisfactions, chemically induced, and the wanting is hard to turn off.
And that's what presumably this
dopamine.
This lovely
just put dopamine on the table.
Well, I suppose in a way, let's have dopamine. That's what this lovely chap or woman here is dealing with in the white suit and the scientist that we talked about, because presumably they're playing around like with that example of the crisps that have all the stuff that create the umami taste but don't satisfy on the protein level, the nutritious level. Yeah. Presuming that's what this person's doing in the science lab within the ultra-processed foods, correct? And that's what's as a response for what these people believe that they want, but they're not necessarily getting, yes?
On the question of wanting, have we put advertising on the table?
Did you say advertising?
Advertising.
No, we haven't, and we can do. So we should put a big billboard or something, or is that a bit old-fashioned?
I thought Claude's point earlier about the glaciers and the mineral water is very important.
I want that.
That's another thing.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. I don't know what
I'm saving this for later.
I do apologise, and I unreservedly. Okay,
perhaps
right. I need a frame. I need a right. Okay, yes, beautiful. So B, where are you saying that I should? This is clearly advertising. So where should I put advertising on the table?
Part of the point is, if we're talking about how it is now and how it could change, we know that the advertising disproportionately goes with those ultra-processed food manufacturers. And how different would the world look if it went with vegetables?
Right. So sorry, B. I just realised something. That even though at the packaging side, there's the marketing side, isn't there? Yes. Because on the side of the Cocoa Pops or whatever, that's where that happens at this end, doesn't it? The advertising and the marketing happens at the packaging end, right? And then that follows downstream. It's not as if the retailers have much control over that, do they? Agreed? Please disagree with me.
Not
all sort of feedback.
No? Who? Okay, great. Jonathan, come on. Oh, I'll come to you in a second. Jonathan, you said no.
I think we agree that maybe advertising is a little bit all around the place.
Yeah, this is marketing trying to lure us in with this.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. But
yeah,
you won't get marketing to do anything unless it's paid. But marketing, right, it doesn't do it by itself. No marketing company says, "Oh, I really fancy just going out and marketing Cocoa Pops today." They need to be paid for by Kellogg's, right? They won't do it by themselves. So marketing, they're just a servant of somebody else, right?
Yes,
Aren't they a servant of the ultra-processed processes?
Yes.
Not only, also in the supermarkets, there's a lot of influence there to come and buy here and different stuff.
I get you, but they presumably over their own brands, right?
No, there's the brand companies and there's the retailers. So
yes.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got marketing from these guys, and we've also got Bombs marketing from the retailers, right?
And hospitality as well.
Here's.
Like McDonald's is great in.
So here's the retailers. That's it.
One.
That looks like a small shop. I want a kind of big, dirty, great big.
Here's another one for the.
What's that for?
For the restaurants.
For the
We're
restaurants.
also doing marketing.
And these are the restaurants, right? So you're saying that there's marketing at lots of different places, yes? Yes, Dutch lady, whose name I should really just learn.
Linda.
I knew we would get there.
Google is evil.
Okay, so Google. Yeah. Oh, two seconds. Yes, was that Google? Right.
Oh yeah.
Just 2 seconds, Barry. I'll come to you. I promise. So we're just dealing with. You probably can't hear. We have a Google hater, basically, who clearly never uses it. Ha ha. As if. Scheisse. So we need something to represent Google, which is probably multicolored, a few little bricks. They then process data. So here's Google, looking all pretending to be lovely, and they suck data from people, and then they then sell that to people, correct? They sell it to the marketeers, don't they? So basically, they are a tool by which accumulates, come on, let's see lots of data, lots and lots of data. Yeah? Great. Right, and then, sorry, 2 seconds, I'm going to come back to you in a second. You were speaking, go on. Right, yes. Okay, great. So this data, so we're actually getting data from farmers, correct? So I'll put some data on the table. Black squares, it's not shit in your case with the thing. Black data. Oh, look at that. I love you. Thank you so much. So we've got data coming from the farmers. Get rid of those black bits. Right, Barry, you were going to say something.
No, but Claude is.
No, I was.
Oh, Claude, sorry. Thank you, Barry. Claude, what are you going to say?
I think I can't help being struck by the fact that we stop at the fork. Why stop at the fork? We get into great detail into farmers, all kinds of processors, everything, and we haven't anything on people using the fork. So what we have is the fork. We should go beyond the fork to stomachs and to people. So forks are on tables. Around tables there are people. What kind of people?
But these are people,
Families.
okay? So just so you, sorry, it might be my fault for not making it clear. These are the people sitting around a table. They look very French to me.
Those are families.
And then here's a family. Here's a dad feeding his 2 children. One he thinks he's a fireman. So we do have people here eating.
Can I suggest that this is...
We have social classes.
Social classes. All sitting at the same table.
We have people eating in institutions, whether schools,
okay, great. Schools,
or companies.
Oh my God, schools we have. So no, you're great. It's good. Well, canteens in
company
great.
after all.
Stop! You're just too good for this, Claude.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Give me that, sir. That's a company. That's a company canteen. So we have canteens where people eat as well, right? And you mentioned something else. So we've got
another table he wanted with other people.
With different social class. Poor people. What do poor people look like? I've forgotten.
Here you go.
Here's a poor person. That was a joke, by the way. Nobody laughed at my joke then. I thought everybody's like, how dare you?
Remember, a company is from Latin companis, which means with bread, people sharing bread or earning bread together.
Okay, so look, here's a different social class. Great.
And then you have religions.
Religions? What do you mean by that?
For what Maria was trying to say, history and culture.
Yes, we've got culture is represented by orange bricks.
No, okay, but I mean, we're trying to embody it.
Hold on a sec, Barry. Not Barry. Claude. Yes, madam. Yes.
Yes, good. I was just suggesting we could put this frame around the family here to kind of symbolize the food habits and the cuisine, because we need to work with the food habits and try to break this at some point and make this family eat differently.
And it's the ritual. So I don't know if the audience at home heard that. We've got a member of the audience saying that we need to put something to frame the audience, the people at home eating, and to represent the rituals and the habits, which is something we're going to work on. Yes, sir. Yeah, sure we can. Let's see some off-grid people. Look at her.
Yeah,
Oh,
guns.
yes,
That's an
guns
on-grid.
and
I
hair.
put them in the hands.
She looks like his wife. Okay, so these people are off-grid, yeah? They're off-grid.
Can these people also be foragers?
So yes, could be.
Yes.
So just so you know, if anybody didn't hear from Virtual Land, we've got some off-grid people here, okay? And he's got guns. Yes, was there? No, that's my hand. I was actually referencing my hand over the table because I thought it was someone's hand up. Right, Mariah, were you going to say something?
A hospital for everybody with food-related illnesses.
Okay, great. Have you got one there?
Well,
and it goes.
Started one.
Great. Oh, that's good enough for me. Oh, there you go. They look sick. So we've got hospitals for people who.
There's one more thing I think we need that is related to the farming, but the machines that you use on the farms, because they can have a quite big influence on how we handle the farm. So maybe this with these wheels or something.
Yeah, good.
And they are produced, so maybe we have a little man here.
Who produce, or a woman?
Or a woman.
Yes.
Not child though.
No, not a child. That would be too dangerous. Okay, so we have people producing the machines which in a way influence the farming, like we talked about with plows and running.
Robotics.
Yes.
Can I throw in the dinosaur?
Of course.
We're talking about not being extinct, so.
Okay, cool,
Definitely.
great. That's a driver for the whole thing, right? You're bringing a sort of a fear that we all might have, which again. So here's.
Well, or does it represent monoculture?
A what?
Monoculture. The dinosaur.
No, for me it's about that we're about to go extinct.
Oh,
This is just literally
okay.
the fear of us all perishing, basically. Hold that thought. Yes, I've got two things. Yes, I'm going to come to you in a second, just because they represent the online audience.
The virtual audience in IT communication across all sections.
That's
The IT communication. Okay, great. So let's have some tubes. So you're basically saying that there's a kind of infrastructure of communication that occurs, not just the transportation, but there's also this sort of communicate. We use these pipes as a way of sort of that people are all interconnected. And I suppose in some ways there are all sorts of people hijacking that and profiteering from that, like Google, your good friend. And there's also,
There's also good data.
Good data, I'm sure. Yes, I'm absolutely sure there is. Whew.
About weather,
What?
about scientific research. There's
You-
data about weather, there's data about scientific research.
Which I presume
Based
all the yellow
people's
squares are utilising, Barry, in their research and development in order to improve the various different systems, yeah? So look, what I
We
want
forgot
to...
the
Oh, I've lost Christina. She's had enough. Right. So look.
Oh, one more.
It's one more. What?
Activists.
Activists.
Oh, that's a good
okay,
one.
great, great. Activists.
He's got one leg. So
Yes,
very
he's really struggled. Okay, he's got his friend with him, the dino. Okay, so
and the
activists.
Chicago Commodity Exchange.
Right. Okay. Whew. So.
We
Yes,
have
I'm
activists
going
who
to come
need
to
lobbying.
last speaker
Lobbying.
before we. No, hold on a second. Yeah, lobbying,
Lobbyists.
lobbying of the politicians. Just give me a
Ooh,
lobbyist. Yes.
Not just
You're
lobbying
too
of
polite. You are.
politicians, it happens everywhere.
Say
The lies, the ways in which the food industry is mimicking big tobacco currently.
Yeah. Hold on a second,
And the
B.
kind of
Hold that.
narratives of these
B.
things.
Hold that thought. Sorry to put you in your place. Just hold that thought. Yes, Austrian woman.
So I think like there's like one dimension influencing everything, and that's time. Because like how fast we process something, if we give food the time, if we give everything time to grow,
Yeah.
that also influences the food we eat. So I think time is very important.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think, again, what I want to try and do is I want to try and put a flag in the sand, as it were, to sort of say, look, whew, an hour has passed. Great. What we've done in this last hour, I believe, I hope, is we've captured some sort of generic, shared, collective understanding and mapping of the food value chain, right? That we all kind of hopefully agree to, yes? Right? You can kind of nod if you find it difficult to say yes. Right, okay. So, okay, a toilet. I'm sure you do, Jonathan. Okay, so that's in waste management.
Paul,
What
I
is
have just one comment. The politicians, just
Yes.
so we agree that that's on all levels.
Yes, policymakers on all levels.
Yeah.
Politicians, local policy,
Yes,
local,
international.
international. Bill Clinton,
it's
whoever.
falling.
Okay, we can go granular and granular and granular, and that would be fantastic. But I think it might be good to sort of now do a little bit of reflection. We have a frame now, don't we, that we kind of agree on in terms of what we think goes on in the world. We have opinions about it, if it's right or it's wrong. The question I want to do now is I want to just get us to reflect a little bit backwards over the last day and a half and think about what has been talked about, both by our eminent speakers, by you guys in the breaks and the dinners and what have you, the voices that have been going on inside your heads, everything that's been happening about addressing this question: how can we eat for both pleasure and planet? All right, because what I want to start doing is finding out whether or not all the juicy stuff, all these juicy balls that have been thrown up in the air, do they make sense? And can we bring them all down at once, or do we have to bring them down in a certain order? Do some have more influence than others? Are some just pie in the sky, as we say in English? Yeah. So what I want you to do now, it would really help me almost if you could almost reference it, you know. But you can go outside of what we've been talked about. But if you can try and say, look, we talked about this, or Barry talked about this, or Barry might say himself, I talked about this. But I want to know what's been talked about in the last day and a half. And how do we bring it back down to earth, and what part of this value chain does it affect, and what effect will it have, and what are the dependencies and the codependencies and all that stuff? Does that make sense? Yeah? Whew, good. Right, so come on then. Who's going to stick their neck out and say something that's happened over the last day and a half and fit it into this table and show how we can modify it? And do me a favour, can you just clean up the table a bit? It's a bit mucky in there. So just bring it back a little bit. Thank you. So what have we got, folks? Anybody? Anybody? Yes, American woman.
That's American too.
I find this really problematic because a food system does not exist in a space on its own. It's part of a global system. And until we address broader problems of inequality on a global level, my question is, can we even begin to talk about how changing the way people eat will impact the environment, when some people can't even address environmental issues because they have such pressing need as just having enough food to eat?
Okay, so hold that thought. I'm just going to kind of rephrase it. So there was a question raised right at the beginning to our virtual audience, just to say that a member of our audience, Canadian, definitely not American, who basically said that is this really relevant, or is this really where the relevance lies to such a question? Because actually there are bigger issues at hand, right? When we talk about people starving around the planet, and that this in a way is a distraction.
Well, it's not connected to larger issues, so we can't problem solve when this is disconnected.
So does that mean, therefore, do we think, and I can throw this out to anybody, not just yourself, but anyway, do we think that all or part or small percentage of the solution to the question, can we eat for planet and pleasure, lies within this? Or do we think that the answer only lies outside of this? Ola.
I think it lies on a sort of an emergent level. And that's why I hate to say the same thing again. All these people are doing things for different reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't think of them necessarily themselves as a big system.
Yeah.
Some work very hard to get food. Some work very hard to earn money to build a business. And some are very happy with plants and like to see them grow. They have all different object functions.
Yes.
They're optimizing something individually.
Yes.
So you have to put it on the higher level, and maybe that's also what you are alluding to. And I hate to say taste, but there's something we should look at a higher level, and maybe sustainability. If each of these actors can see there's a higher meaning here, and in old days you would say to serve God.
Yes.
And you will do all these things to serve God.
Okay.
And now people they're doing things to serve themselves or the immediate environment. So I think that's why I think policymakers, they have no chance of changing this unless they understand the dynamics of the system.
I completely agree. Can I interrupt just briefly? Can I just re-qualify something? Okay, something's happened over the last, I don't know, 1,000 years or whatever, how long ever it's been. It's got it to a place where we are running a conference that asks the question, how can we eat for pleasure and planet, right? So something went wrong. Is this the place where it went wrong? Or is it on another table? Is this where, I mean, is this part of where it went wrong, and this is where part of the solution lies because we're trying to fix that, or did the problem happen elsewhere? I hope that's relevant to the question. Gentleman with a...
I think on this table we have a part of the question, the answer, because if we just continue to shift the frame of reference in discussing this very complex matter, then we will never reach a solution. That is what in fact happens in the political area. As you excuse me. So this is a very good frame for discussing things, but we will not get to the final conclusion here.
Okay, can I sum that up just for the audience at home? So gentlemen suggesting that it might not contain this frame here, the whole answer, but it might contain part of the answer. And if we simply kick the ball into the long grass, my words, not his, and if we just push it into another frame of reference, then in some ways we are, again, shirking our responsibility for what aspects we can do. There was a comment, somebody, yes?
I think it's all about values. What we value,
Yeah.
and we value profit a lot these days, and we value short-termism a lot these days. So if we value other things than just money and look in a broader perspective in the future, then we can change systems.
I've got you. Now hold that thought. So a woman from the audience mentioned about how we value things and if we can change the way by which we value things. Now I do this work a lot with writers to deconstruct their stories for film and TV series. And what I'm always trying to do is actually addressing the point that all always talks about, which is about motive. You know, why is a character doing something in the way they do? What's interesting is, and in a way, I'm not just picking on you here, but I think it's really interesting that there's a level of discourse where we can talk about we, if we can change the value. But what I'm trying to do here, and it's very difficult with 60 people, is I'm trying to create a frame so that I kind of put it back and say, hold on, who the hell is we? Because the point that Ulla keeps making is there are many we's, right? There are so many different we's, and they're all incentivized and motivated by very different things. So when you talk about we and value, who are we talking about? Is there an order in which we talk about those people? Who do we start with first? Do we start with many at the same time? Because it's a complex system, and we can't just talk about we when there are probably 50 we's on this table, I would argue.
Mm.
So now I'm going to be a bit tight on you. Don't worry, leave it an hour. Is that when we're coming up with trying to get these balls from the air and put them on the table, I need something a bit more concrete, almost as if I'm saying to you afterwards, right, go on then, off you go and do it. I can't just have this kind of like, well, we need to do this and we need to do that. I need something more concrete. Who are we talking about on the table? Silence, sorry. Yes, sir.
The we are, even though that we are different parts of this value chain, we are all consumers because I guess seed is coming, we all can eat. And what we do is also we got the money to pay for this value chain going, and we can vote with our money. I know it's not the big answer, but if we ourselves, me, myself, and you yourself, to start voting with your money. And,
well, let me paraphrase that for the home audience, because I had to keep it short. So for the home audience, gentlemen just suggest that we, when I push the issue and say, who is the we, the gentleman saying, it's we as consumers. We as consumers have power on this table to vote with our money. And that somehow that's going to then influence things upstream and is going to change things. Is that our starting point? If we're going to eat for pleasure and planet, are they just going to do that because they heard about our conference? Or are they going to do it for some other reason? Are they going to do it because of some social influencer suddenly said, hey, you should eat healthy, or for the planet, or whatever? So what's going to initiate that? I mean, these things don't happen by the... It's not like Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams. You know, if you build it, they will come. I mean, these things have to kind of happen, right? How do they happen? Yes, Barry?
Can I try something?
Yes.
So we're talking as though there's a set of choices we have, and will people change their minds and will consumers go on as they are, but that's neglecting a sense of urgency. We now know that soil degradation, water scarcity is going to make it impossible to continue as we're doing. So we know that we're going to have to eat differently because these choices are just not still going to be there. Now the question is, in the face of this urgency, where do we try to influence change? And one thing we might try to do is make sustainably produced, sometimes local, sometimes seasonal, but hydroponically food needn't be seasonal. We try to make it more delicious, and we try to make it desirable, but we also have to wean people off the food that has been grown in those bad and...
But Barry, I'm sorry to stop you there, but Barry, if you can hear me, you're falling into the we trap. That sounds weird, but you are...
No.
But who is the we? I mean, who is it the people like...
Look.
Who is influencing that system?
We all face limited choices now. That's the point. So it's no good saying who's we and who should do it first, who's going to move first. We're all going to have to move. It's getting urgent now. You know, lots of the planet is burning. We're not continuing in the same way.
You can take responsibility. Great. Anybody else can be responsible for themselves? I mean, okay. Does everybody else agree with that? I mean, I still don't have that feeling of. I mean, it sounds quite optimistic in a way that everybody's just going to change and convert. B, it looks like you're going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Sorry, am I echoing still?
No, you're great. Actually, Barry, you might want to put headphones on because your audio's a bit bad. But
so in Amsterdam, it's one of the very few places in the world that has done anything to reduce child obesity through the Child Healthy Weight Programme. They actually did it by creating a new we across these multiple actors and agents. So the politician who drove that forward, he created a shared narrative where suddenly everyone accepted, from McDonald's to parents, to schools, to restaurants, to teachers, that actually when you look at a child who's obese, that's not about individual responsibility, that's not about free choice. It's a problem that affected everyone, and everyone needed to work together to change it. And somehow they did, and it took multiple interventions in multiple spheres, and as we can just see from the mad complexity of the table, it's not one thing that's going to fix it. There's not going to be one sudden magic bullet. It needs to be lots and lots of things happening at once. But I would query the idea that there is no we, because it's not just that we have a power to vote with money. At some level, we are all these sentient human eaters. We're all born, and at these first moments of life, we drink milk. And after that, all of our preferences are formed in this maddening, unequal world. But just as Claude has spoken of the omnivore's dilemma, I think there's also a wonderful thing about this omnivore, which is the omnivore's secret, which is that we can change our preferences at any point in the human lifespan to adapt to new environments. And that's what we've got to do. As Barry said, it's urgent, but it can happen. It's happened before, and it needs to happen again.
Okay, let's hold you there. So I want to throw it back to our four eminent speakers around the table. What comments or thoughts have you got about what you've just heard? You were next to me, Bom. I don't know if that was a good or a bad.
I think it was a good one. But I think one of the challenges is that you can try to work on your own preferences to change them. Not just preferences, but also the habits. But your personal influence is limited. So we need we need the influences to be like Greta Thunberg.
Okay.
To magnify that personal change, right?
Right. So does that mean that a change has to happen and she has to magnify it? Is that what Greta did in a way that she almost drew our attention to something that was already happening? She wasn't the instigator, was she? Because she was already saying other people were doing it.
She was just saying, listen to science in the beginning.
Right. Okay.
Can I come with one comment on this? And that was a bit what I also asked Claude about. This influencer, for example, me being, I try to be quite aware of what I eat and how I handle to live a sustainable life. But when I go out, maybe not in developing countries where there are other agendas and things that are more present for them than eating meat or not, so that aside. But for example, in Denmark and Europe and Western countries, should I then be polite and eat what they serve and not demand specific a la carte menu? Or should I say, hey, I'm really aware that if we don't act now, then I will tip all this table, destroy it all. So please, could we eat something sustainable? Maybe use meat as a bit of a spice, but can I be an agent of change by spreading this word to not just me and my closest friends who thinks the same as me, but also when I go out and meet other people? Or should I stick to myself to keep responsibility?
Well,
I don't know, and it's being polite, but also like really.
Well, I heard a very interesting thing. It's very interesting because you talk about activism and about how active we are. And I heard a very interesting thing that said that the reason why the civil rights movement had such a strong and potent effect in North America was that they started to realize that because it's quite a litigious society, that you can actually use the law, and that's what they did, use the law for black rights, for civil rights, as a way and it's not a European mentality to use the law, and they've just started doing that now in environmentalism, to use the law as a way of sort of suing people against. You know. So I'm just wondering again. I mean, are you worried about becoming an activist, or are you thinking that it might upset Claude's cultural dimension, or are you? I mean, any comments from Ulla or Mariah or Bob? Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment. This system is what we call a self-organized system. You can't do much to change the system. And the trouble is that it works fine until we find that's the limit on the globe. We are in a finite system. And then that creates all the problems. Now, if we look at the resource on the planet, there's enough calories to feed even a growing population, but the distribution is completely skewed. And just to put it very basic, because we have to address everyone on the planet. That is that we have to change our eating habits. And we not all talk about all eating strange things. We talk about eating the same things we've been doing for a long time. But we have to eat more green and less meat. That's the basic thing. There's nothing new in the reports. That's the big picture. And this is where tastes come in. And I think that we can learn from this conference, because there is a cure. I mean, it's already solved in other parts of the world. We have to eat much more green from the lower level of the food web, and cut down on those from the higher web. And then for a long time, the planet will be big enough, but eventually it'll go wrong.
Go on, Barry. Yes, Barry?
The thing is, I agree with what Ulla's saying. But we're up against some very powerful motivators. Remember, the ultra-processed food is liked because it's so desirable. I mean, there's a scene in Trainspotting, if you remember the film, where Renton says, we know the drugs are bad for us. We know they'll ruin our lives and our health, but they're so damn good. That's the kind of addictive stuff we're up against. So it's not a fair fight by saying maybe you just try some vegetables instead. Either we have to make them ultra delicious, or we have to get legislation to ban some of the ingredients in ultra processed food.
Laura.
Yeah, it's just
Can I come up?
Yes, so Christina, 2 seconds. I'm going to come to Laura, and then I'm going to come to you, Christina, and then Claude. Laura.
Okay, just we talked about doing these changes within a capitalist system. One of the fundamental things in a capitalist system, and saying that the liberal economy works, is to say that the price needs to be set right. And right now we have a problem with negative externalities from the production and consumption of food that is not within the price. So if we could make some taxes, and that's so complicated, but if we could make some taxes that would actually put the right price on the products, so when we consume, we will be a bit more aware of how we spend our money and be brought more to the vegetables and stuff. Maybe that could make us reduce how much meat we eat, and then the money that we could have extra in taxes, we could actually use them on maybe trying to do something good for the environment and also for the people actually starving because of all these things.
And I imagine that's what you're doing as a lobbyist against politicians, yes?
That is one of the things that we try to, but also to make people understand some of these things. And
I've got you. So communicating like almost the emphasis.
Yes.
Christina, what are you going to say?
Yes, thank you. Can we come back to the school?
Yeah, of course. Come back to anything you want, Christina.
Okay, good. So if we are coming back to the schools, I wonder if in the audience is somebody from Brazil?
Any educators here?
From Brazil?
Yes, there's one. Yes, we have a Dutch educator.
From Brazil?
No, Dutch. Similar, but different.
I am looking for somebody from Brazil.
Not from Brazil, sorry.
We don't have any.
We couldn't get any at short notice.
Okay, so Brazil made a huge change in very few years, okay? And they were working with small farmers and a huge food purchase for procurement, to secure, right? And in few years, that country got from hunger to zero famine. They call it zero famine, okay? But it was amazing. I mean, it's like they will not recognize it now, but they were using agroecology, and they were working on communities around the schools, and they started to all the ideas of school feeding programs. So after that, many cities and cities have been following that, like for example, Los Angeles. And that, together with the food policy councils, which are bottom-up, totally bottom-up, from their consumers and producers together try to make it better. Thanks to that, we were able to eat during the COVID in Los Angeles, because there was food.
Okay,
and they were all these schools doing that, and it was, and there is a change. There is a total change in the food the schools are giving to the kids.
I could see some nodding heads from our audience. Is that something you've heard about and you know about, right?
Yes, we heard about, yeah. They had the food regulations were on that table, so not about nutrition, but about eating together, cooking together. As Christina said, bottom up, combination between produced and consumer, and since Bolsonaro, it's turned all the way around.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Claude, you were going to say something? Oh, you're muted, Claude. Oh, and you've just disappeared, Claude.
Yes, I will say something.
And we can hear you. Oh, beautiful.
Because I have to leave, I just want to say that we have a hard time letting be on the fork, looking at the end user. When you ask your weak,
Claude,
the answer is...
I'm sorry, Claude, we can't hear you properly. It's very difficult to hear you. Do you have your headphones? Because it's distorting.
So I think I feel it's too difficult at this point. It was really enjoyable.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you, Claude. Thank you very much. Yes, Lara, and then Mariah.
I have one more thing. These dear consumers down here, they are having a really hard job. They have to go to work. They have to get their kids from the kindergartens. They have to go and shop. They have to meet some other families. They have to go to meetings on the schools. They are so busy also. So having to be this aware customer all the time, that's really complicated. I think one way that we could try to influence as consumers and workers is to try to find all the places that we work and demand from our the kitchens there, the cooks there, that they produce and serve sustainable food for us. It's a good thing for the company. They can try to brand themselves as sustainable. It's people preparing the food that has knowledge about food, how to prepare it. They have the time to do it. And people will get healthy, sustainable food, and they might be inspired to use some new ingredients, to use meat as spice. I think that could be a shortcut to help maybe all of the chain.
Cool. Mariah?
Yeah, what I want to say links a little bit into what you're saying as well. I think that even below the choices that we make for food, I think many people are actually feeling very stressed about life. And I think especially hearing about all the challenges of climate change makes people kind of paralyzed. And what do you do when you're stressed? And you actually switch off your alpha brainwaves, you go into beta brainwaves, you feel stressed. By feeling stressed, you make certain food choices that might not be so healthy for you. If you're getting yourself into a more relaxed state of mind, then you can also come up with more creative solutions, feel as if you're having more time, and when you're feeling that you're having more time, you will also prepare food in a different way. So I think there is something below all of this, and I quite like what you're saying, like we're not believing in this one God anymore, so that's what we're actually working towards. But I think there's something else, which is maybe even on a spiritual level, trying to see what are we about as human beings, because all these people at the table, essentially, you know, the farmer and also the person working in the science part, like everybody is also just an operating human being who will die in the end, and he's equally concerned with this planet. So I think the thing is that now we don't really feel responsibility. So we're all saying, yeah, this part should do it or that part should do it. But in the end, we're all just responsible human beings. But if we also tell our children that, you know, they are not responsible or that they do not have the power, I think if we're trying to go back, all of us, like as a human being, to go and find our personal power and to wonder, like, what is really important in life. We're stressing about things that are not even real. we believe in stories that are not even real. If we go back to what is really real, and then know, if that's really real, I can quite relax, and I can choose for maybe good food, and maybe the next day bad food, and not even feel guilty about it, because I know life is short and I'm okay. Then also I feel relaxed enough to help someone who doesn't have food. But I think we actually need to go and lower our brain waves to alpha beta brain waves, so we can feel the liberty to really live. And if we do really live, then we can also enjoy good quality food. And I think, I'm not saying that that will change everything, but everybody on this table can do that by themselves, and then maybe that can also influence some bigger systems.
Okay, so I'm going to start winding the session down. B, I'm coming to you in 2 seconds. I'm going to start winding it down. I'm going to go to B, and then I'm going to then put boom, and I'm going to put all on the spot. So, and our other virtual speakers, if they want to say something. B, is there anything you'd like to say as some sort of closing remarks?
I just wanted, I so agree about the last point, linking mental health and food choices. But I think underneath that, there are also these vast economic forces, such big social and economic inequalities around food, but they go deeper than food. And I think the only people who can really redress those are the policymakers. There need to be, yes, as Ulla has said, each of these agents in the chain has different motivations, but policymakers can come up with levers which affect each of the agents in different ways. If you've got an ultra-processed food manufacturer who only cares about profit, well, you can introduce restrictions, you can change the laws on advertising, you can introduce taxes, you can have really radical, ambitious policies of the kind that we've seen in Chile, where ultra-processed food has to come with these giant stop signs placed on it. But you can also do positive things that could help the people in this stressed state, which is why can't we make real, delicious, very sustainable food the easy choice, the affordable choice. And usually when it comes to human preference, we like what we know and we know what we like. But the problem is that so much of what we're being offered isn't really food. If we could somehow live in a world in which you step into a food shop and the main choices were delicious whole plant food, then so many of the rest of it would just fall into place.
Fantastic. Christina, do you have any closing remarks from yourself?
Yes, I would love to share experience about taxing or providing incentives. So, despite I believe that, no, I have seen it. I mean, it's like there are plenty of statistics that taxing food will make to decrease the consumption of whatever. However, taxing meat may be negative for certain groups of groups in our society that maybe they are eating more ruminants, or it's complicated. I have seen this in even in Spain or in other countries. However, providing incentives like what I was mentioning, like the good purchasing programs, like all the school feeding programs and the purchasing program together with that, giving incentives to buy, if it is not organic, well, biological or ecological, or, sort chains, and, looking into some human rights or work. I mean, it's like a workers' rights. If we are giving these incentives, at the end of the day, we end up with something like the good purchasing programs for the schools in Los Angeles, which for me is like, it was the first time that I was seeing something similar to Brazil, but imported by North Americans. So if it works here, it works everywhere. Like, and this is, what I would say, change taxes by incentives.
Fantastic. Barry, have you got any closing remarks? Thank you, Christina. Barry?
Yes, I do. So I think that if we all had the space and peace of mind to be able to step back and take individual responsibility and choose better food and responsibly sourced food and look for good ingredients, all would be well. But I fear that too many people who've been fed on a diet of ultra-processed food is making them feel anxious, stressed, tired. Quite often they don't sleep as well. Quite often they have inflammatory problems. So we have to work really hard to wean people off. So I like the idea that was suggested of finding people in their workplace with knowledge to be able to cook for them and to have that knowledge and to offer them good choices, especially when they're stressed, especially when they have little time. And the other thing I would suggest is we start with children. When I was a child, like many others, we used to do this thing when we were very small of growing cress, and then we would eat it. And we were amazed that we could grow something in the school, that we could eat it. And there's a company in Brazil who have been putting hydroponic tanks into schools where children can grow broccoli. And children might be very tempted to eat this broccoli, especially if it was treated in the delicious way that Ulla knows how to do. They would be more inspired if they saw that it was something they had grown and watched it grow. So I think we can use a little bit of technology, and we also have to use the food education that Bee delivers to people to make children interested and fascinated with food. So I think there are many things we can do, but it has to start early. We also have to give people a lot of help to wean them off the food that's not making them happy or healthy. It's not good for the planet.
Thanks, Barry. Bob, do you have any closing remarks?
I thought about this from the perspective of what can I do in my professional role and what can I do as a personal activist. I mean, I can make a lot of choices for myself, and in my professional role I can educate a lot of, not a lot, but a number of food science masters of science who will be the innovators of new foods go out, and they know these principles. They know about how to convince people to try something new. They know how to convince people to try something that is healthier for them, but at the same time is good for the planet as well. So I think my closing remark is we need to individually act together to do the best for what we can from our professional standpoint, and then as a person, I'm an activist. I ask my retirement fund to go green. That's a lot of money. I ask my university to go green, my employer, and I ask my local supply for electricity, etc., to go green by demanding those choices from them. And I've done all of that. I just need to get an electrical car the next.
Yes, can you give me a lift home? Oh, Ulla.
I'd like to quote the American anthropologist Richard Wrangham, who said, "We are cooks. There's something that separates us as a species from other species, and that is that we cook our food. And the cooking made us human." That's his statement. So I think in order to address this problem, I think we have to go back to basics. And I think that's basically the alpha waves as well. So cooking and food has to be brought together again. And of course it also starts with the children. And when it comes to cooking, it's also the tasting, it's the senses. And I think if I should just, was asked to, one thing I could bring further, and I usually tell that to children, that is to, when they ask about sustainability, which is the issue of this meeting, is you have to understand the little about how things flow on the planet, and that's why I talk about the sun. And you have to understand that every time you go through what is called a trophic level, something that eats something else, you lose 90%. So every time something is fed on something else and something else is feeding on that, you're losing 90%. So that's accumulating very quickly. That's a rule of thumb that everyone can use. And so it immediately calls for eating from what I call from the bottom of the food web. And that's where we find the plants, the algae, and the fungus. And I think then the rest is cooking. And I think that's what Bee put forward here. So I'd like to bring back to the fact that we are cooks, and we have to come back to the roots. And cooking is both preparing the food, tasting the food, and eating the food with others. And taste comes first.
Well, what a fantastic way to end. I want to thank you all. It's been really pleasure and fun and a bit scary at times to gather you around a table, which I think is rather fitting, seeing as we're talking there at the end about communally eating together. I think we've sort of communally created something together. I want to thank our virtual guests, of which Barry and Christina survived. B is obviously fallen on the floor and we lost applause. So thank them. Thank you very much. I want to thank also our four speakers here, Ulla and Bom and Mariah, and hey, B's back, and Lara, so thank you very much. I want to thank all of you as well for contributing. I do apologise for any rudeness. I hope I covered it over with my British charm. But I hope that I didn't offend anybody too much. So that's that, and I'm going to say thank you very much, and I'm going to hand over to the Queen Bee herself, Susanna.
Thanks. And thanks a lot, Paul.
And thank you.
For this. How can our taste buds save the planet? How can we eat for both planet and pleasure? We didn't promise you any answers, but we really do hope that we have qualified these questions here at these 2 days. We have been 80 people from 15 countries, and at last 30 people, being chefs, cooks, organizers, designers, musicians, technicians, and our wonderful convener, Paul. We have all co-created this. We hope that you will bring this sensory, collaborative, and experimental atmosphere home from here and continue to qualify these questions. You can actually continue just now in the brewery downstairs, where there's a dessert for you, and there's a drink, and you can hang out as long as you want, before 11 o'clock. No, but thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot for your engagement. Thanks for coming to the screen. And actually, I think both our virtual, our virtual audience and you on the screen added to this. It made it more alive. And this was not another Zoom meeting, I think. And also thanks to our Danlas people for making this possible. So, goodbye. We hope to see you again next time, whenever that is. But have a nice trip home and enjoy your afternoon here. Thank you.